So this is the moment where we have the full moon, November 10th at about 2 a.m. Pacific time, 2:10 a.m. Pacific time. And you see that the moon is at 23:59 Aries, sun is at 24:03 Libra, so it's a exact full moon here. And while we have this full moon, you see Mercury is defeating Venus in this planetary war here in Scorpio. It's been going on for a while, so a lot of the diplomacy and the accommodation and the willingness to please others and all that is being sort of undercut by Mercury in a more kind of kind of disconnected nature. Mercury is less tuned into the heart than Venus. Mercury is more neutral, so it's like a kind of aloof quality and a detached quality. So it's really a time of wanting some detachment from our emotions and even from our relationships, for sure, from our romantic entanglements. Mercury, but it's happening in Scorpio, which is very dynamic and very potentially emotional and dramatic. And so you also see that when we have this full moon, they're very close to Rahu. So this debilitated Rahu in Scorpio is also really important in this cycle now. We're going to have eclipse cycle next month, but Mercury and Venus right near Rahu while we have the eclipse is pretty, while we have the full moon is pretty dramatic as well. So the sun is in Libra, so it's the halfway point in the sun cycle. That's what the full moon is. It's the halfway point in the sun cycle. So this is the sun cycle of Libra, and we have the full moon in Aries. So it's the balancing point between the Libra lesson, which started like 24 days ago. Libra is very much about accommodating another person's wishes, yielding to another person's wishes, wanting to work things out in relationship. That's what the Libra lesson is. So we often compromise a lot when it comes to the Libra lesson in life. And the moon in Aries is where we reassert our individuality. Because if we just compromise mindlessly, then no one is served, and we're not going to be happy with that. Then we're just going to have to fight to reclaim our territory later. And so there could be a lot of that right now. And in this full moon, we're feeling a lot of that Aries energy, that willfulness, that individuality, and kind of distancing ourselves out of, on principle and things like that with Moon Jupiter in Aries. So you can maybe see that your romantic connections have that quality right now, where there's a real kind of sticking to your guns based on, your own individuality. I've compromised enough, and frankly, with all these planets in Scorpio and this thing I just mentioned with Venus being defeated in the planetary war, and Venus is the ruler of the sun, so we're in this sun cycle, which is about the sun cycle in Libra, which is about wanting to compromise and wanting to please the other, but it's in Scorpio, which is feeling victimized, feeling taken advantage of, and it's also undercut by Mercury, which is like, so I'm taken advantage of and I'm victimized, so I'm just going to go away. I'm just going to like dismiss and not talk and shut down, or talk in a very kind of accusatory, harsh and aggressive way. There's definitely that potential as well, where the more subtle qualities of Mercury and Venus are being twisted through the sign of Scorpio, which is about vindication and revenge. If you feel like you've been victimized right now, there's a lot of that, sort of revenge factor, and some of it could be very passive aggressive with Mercury, especially because, especially under the guise of like, well, I'm just going away now, or nah, it's no big thing, it's this kind of light and breezy sort of thing, and it's just kind of dropping things and not really dealing with them. So the other big thing that's happening is Mars is in Leo now, which is really kind of one of the bigger changes that's happened, is that Mars was debilitated for a couple months when he went through Cancer. Then he goes into Leo, and we're over-asserting our self-will, over-asserting our independence, and not really yielding at all. So there's a lot of, the fire is a lot stronger than the air right now, so we're not really in a very relationship-friendly mode right now anyway. And so Saturn is also about to change signs, but that's getting a little too dispersed. The other big thing here is that the moon is in Bharani Nakshatra, which is ruled by Venus, and the god is called Yama, which is about restraint, and it's also related to the sex organ, the female sex organ. It has to do with regeneration, has to do with literally with sexuality and sexual pleasure, but also with creativity and the results of how our will penetrates reality, what gets produced. So Bharani is that nakshatra, and the full moon is in Bharani. So there's a feeling of inhibition and restraint and heaviness in this nakshatra. It's one of the hardest ones. It's literally, it means the bearers, where we're like bearing difficulty, where we have to just sort of bear it. So there could be that quality of bearing it for the next couple weeks with, by the time the moon moves around and we have the next new moon in Scorpio, which is also going to be an eclipse. So that's the forecast, the general forecast, and then for my gold members, I'll do a forecast for each of the 12 signs.